So let's kick it off. Formal welcome to everybody. Thank you for joining us on a Saturday morning. And we are delighted to have Kate join us for the second time. Was everybody here present at Kate's first talk, or is this? No, okay. Some of you were, some of you weren't. What we'll do then, we'll do a little kind of just a very small recap on the seasons and seasonal living and how Chinese medicine views this. And then Kate will move into the summer season, and we'll spend a bit more time on that since we're supposedly the beginning. I'm not sure about that here in North London right now, but there you go. So, and then we'll, Kate's going to do a little cooking demonstration for us, which I'm very excited about. So, Kate, hello, welcome.
Hello, Stella. Thank you for having me again. It's lovely to be here.
Oh, it's always pleasant to have you with us, and always love your knowledge and your wisdom. So let's kick it off and do a quick rundown on why, seasonal living and how Chinese medicine views this, and why you advocate it.
Okay, so hello everybody. Some of you were here last time, some of you weren't, and so if you were here last time, I forgive you because you may have heard some of these words before, but I think drip learning is a really good way of letting things filter in. So if you have heard it before, then it might just be a way of re-endorsing what you heard, or it may be consolidating, and sometimes you pick up something that you've forgotten about from last time. And so forgive me if I repeat myself, but I just want to sort of tell you a little bit about the concept of this so that people who are here, who weren't here last time, can pick up and be with us really smoothly. So 2 sentences on me for those who don't know me. I'm Kate Henley. I've been in private practice acupuncture for 25 years now. I'm passionate about supporting people in a holistic way. I got into Chinese medicine because I had a complicated experience watching my mum pass in a way that was really challenging for me. And I was kind of curious about another way of living your life and another way of ending your life. And I got drawn to Chinese medicine, and I started my training after I had some sessions myself. When I started my training, I had no idea that Chinese medicine was based on this concept of yin and yang. So it's all about balance in the body. And they talk about the body going out of balance when you've got too much of something and not enough of something else. And they apply that to all the organs of the body. So you can have too much yin in your stomach or too much yang in your heart. And they basically, their health model is set up on balance. So they really like to look at the body in health, actually, and it's more about prevention of disease, whereas Western medicine is more geared towards supporting health when things have gone wrong. So it's kind of when the accident has happened, if you like, Western medicine is actually very adept at stepping in for things like, acute care and kind of long-term illnesses, degenerative diseases such as arthritis, cancer, autoimmune disorders, things like that. So Western medicine is really powerful at supporting those sorts of presentations. But Eastern medicine is much more of a preventative model, if you like. So they really want to keep the body in balance. That's their kind of key. And they believe that the body goes out of balance for many different reasons and causes dis-ease. And I've always found that word really interesting because for me, dis-ease shows that they have a big emphasis on the fact that when your emotions go out of balance, the body goes out of balance physically. And this is where the mind-body connection really taps in for me. This is where I start getting really interested about why people get ill. And the reason they think of this is because they've developed this beautiful model, apart from the yin yang theory, which is one of their deep concepts, balance basically. The other concept they've got is this concept of what they call the 5 elements. Well, what is the 5 elements and what does it actually mean? Well, what they did was they modeled their healthcare system on nature. So they looked at nature and thought, wow, that's pretty cool. That mirrors life, if you like. We have the spring when we are born. We have our utmost of energy in the summer when we're a teenager or in our 20s and we're experiencing the utmost kind of energy of our lives. And then we have the autumn. Well, actually, they have another season, which is why there's 5 seasons, which is the late summer, which is September. And that's a transition season. So from the peak of youth to when we start to decline, we have this transition time. And this transition time is September, and that's the extra season. So in the autumn, we decline, we slow down, the leaves fall off the trees, our bodies slow. And the autumn of life is, well, it used to be earlier, but people are living much longer now. So the autumn of life is the 50s and the 60s, 40s, 50s, 60s, if you like. And then we move into the winter energy, which is the late life energy. And we move into what the Chinese believe to be our wisdom. So they actually believe that it's not a time of decline and, sadness and loss, but it's a time of wisdom and support. And, I'm often talking to menopausal and postmenopausal women about this. It's actually a time, what's called our second spring. And it's a time of wisdom and giving back, if you like, giving back to the next generation. And this age is very much revered in Chinese medicine. So the winter of life is not all horrible. And if you've eaten well and looked after yourself, then old age can be a really nourishing, joyful time. In fact, for some people, it's actually the best time of their lives. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the concept about how we arrive there in that space. And so basically these seasons, they mapped out in a circular thing. So spring, summer, late summer, autumn and winter. And then on top of that, they thought, well, that's interesting. We can map the body on that. And so they've got different parts of the body that relate to the seasons. So the summer season relates to the heart energy, by the way. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that, how the summer relates to our heart, and that relates to our connections with other people, our connections with ourselves, and our connections with a higher power, whatever that may be. So each of the seasons, and there are 5, relate to 5 organs. And each of the seasons also relate to a color. They relate to an emotion. They relate to a taste, a flavor, a part of the body. And so when we arrive in that season, we think, so we're in the summer, we're moving into the summer. And Estella says it's a little bit slow starting, but we've arrived in the summer. And so now we're going to support the energy of the organ that relates to the summer, which is the heart. And supporting the heart is all about being joyful and making connections. So we're going to talk about that a bit later. So essentially, they've got this 5-element model. And as we move through the seasons, essentially, we nourish the part of the body and the organ and the emotion that relates to that time of year. How do we do that? We do that by choosing the foods that relate to that particular season. We do that by adopting lifestyle practices that relate to that particular season. So if we're talking about the summer energy, we're talking about being upwards and outwards and being more energetic, essentially. Whereas if we're talking about the winter, we're talking about slowing down, resting, hibernating, if you like, and gathering energy. So the summer's about expending energy, and the winter is about nourishing, slowing down, and gathering. So each of the seasons has a thing to do, if you like. It also has an emotion to look at. And how do we do that? Well, we look at the color that relates to the season. We look at the flavor that relates to the season. And we dovetail that into the things that we cook. And that's one of the main reasons that eating according to the seasons is powerful for the body, because it puts us in line with what's going on outside of our windows. And in my experience, the biggest reason that we are sick as a society and in our daily lives is we have this massive disconnection with ourselves, with other people, exacerbated by COVID, and with our world around us. I mean, David Attenborough, doesn't he, talks about, this massive disconnect we have with nature, where we just, decimating where we're living. We're not connected with it at all. Similarly, we're not connected so well with other people. Again, exacerbated by the pandemic, but we're not so connected because we're more connected to our electronics. We're looking down, we're not looking up and out. And this is one of the biggest problems that we are facing. So people are quicker to eat according to convenience, eat fast, because they've got busy lives and they've got to move on and do the next thing on their to-do list. And it's faster and faster and faster. Whereas the Chinese model is all about slowing down, being mindful and present and living according to where we're at in the year. Choosing the foods where it's been grown locally. And that will essentially give us more energy, rather than rushing to the supermarket and saying, well, I'll eat a mango because I know that's healthy, without thinking about where that has been grown, how far that's had to travel to get to your supermarket, how much energy has had to be expended to get that. And so this is where the disconnect come in, and people's scripts and their brains think, well, I eat really well because I have a mango for breakfast, or I have a kiwi, or I eat blueberries from Morocco. And my job is more about trying to kind of encourage people to find time to connect with themselves and with their local environment. Like this morning, I've been up to my market. I live in St Albans and we have a really nice market on Saturday morning, and there's a lovely greengrocer there and he goes, I know you want the English stuff. I know. We can't have those courgettes because they came from France. And I did. I bought what he had. I bought what was growing locally, and he knows where he sources his vegetables. And I know that they're better for me to eat energy-wise. So I'm there asking, everybody's turning around in the queue thinking, who's this nutter insisting that her blueberries are grown in the UK? But I got them. I got my blueberries from the UK. Whereas when I looked in the supermarket, they came from Morocco. So
I would say that it's really interesting, this point, because there's two things I want to pick up on what you've said. I've just come back from Thailand. Lots of people here know I spent some time in Thailand visiting our retreats, and these are really beautiful top-end retreats, and they all went to great efforts to tell me how their food is sourced locally and how much they're growing it themselves, like how many herbs that they're growing themselves, and they're showing me their gardens and all of that. And so you go to like the top retreats around the world, and they're very committed to either bringing their ingredients in from local farmers, very local farmers, and they're also committed to growing their own. And so it goes back down to this local thing. I have a question. What's your preference, organic or local?
It's a good question, and I mull it over all the time. My answer is actually local.
Interesting.
Because I can trust that more. And in terms of the organic, we have to read a lot about what does organic mean?
Mm-hmm.
And, my children who are in their 20s are like, oh, for goodness sake, Mum, organic just means they haven't sprayed X on it. Don't pay an extra £2 for your raspberries. And you have to look very carefully about what they mean by organic, because sometimes it's very strict and sometimes it's less strict. And, it's a little bit of a loose term. But when I'm talking about certain foods, I think organic is very important. And that goes for things like meat and fats. So butter, which I think is a healthy product in moderation. Remember, everything's about moderation.
Yeah.
I would always buy organic butter. I would never buy non-organic butter. So there are certain things that are very important, and there's certain vegetables that are more contaminated if you buy them non-organic, and you can look those up very, very easily. There's a list of vegetables that you really should make sure that they're organic if you're eating them, because they're heavily sprayed.
Yeah, I just wanted to get that view. So generally local, the perfection would be local organic, I guess, if you could get that. Yeah, if you could get that. But there is that, and there's a growing movement of that in the UK with local markets and local organic producers, and lots of local markets popping up everywhere. And then I just have one more observation, sorry, Kate, and then I'll let you get on with it. It's just that when I was in Asia, again, it's Eastern versus Western, it was so obvious to me, and it was just beautiful, actually. A lot of these places have, like Western medical doctors. So they have like all medically trained, allopathy trained doctors. And then what sits alongside that, though, is the Eastern philosophies. So the doctors in the hospitals are advocating the Eastern way of living, like what you're saying here, the meditation, the Tai Chi, the Qigong, the yoga, the Ayurveda, all of those things. They're doing them alongside each other. So it's not one system fighting the other. It's not alternative. It's very much complementary. And it's just a different approach, like an acceptance of each other. Whereas I find in the West, it's either this or that. And like the Western trained doctors are rubbishing everything else. And, and then it creates a conflict in a way. So people are just, they've become two separate camps, but there's no reason why they can't sit alongside each other. And I saw that very clearly in Asia, because I became one of those people over here that kind of sat in the anti-camp, like the camp of like, oh, the Western medical system is corrupt, and it's pharmaceuticals are ruling the world and all of that stuff. And I became that way until I went there, and then I was just seeing this, how beautifully it sat together, and how the Western medical doctors were looking for Eastern practices as well, to say, look, bring that in here. We're only here when you absolutely need us, and that's the beauty. So I just wanted to say that, because I've literally just lived it and seen it, and just think it's fascinating, and that's how it should be, and I'm hoping we'll get there.
Well. I really am grateful that you shared that, Stella, because it has to be an embodied experience for you to really understand this concept. And I've lived my practice life with this whole issue at the heart of it. I spent 25 years or 22 years working in a GP's practice because I wanted integrated medicine. I wanted people to have a choice. I wanted people to let people choose their method of healing. It wasn't about that I was right and I wanted to persuade them. I wanted to sit with them, and I got very deflated, because after 2 decades of doing that, there was still this resistance with the GPs, using me as a last resort. And I had an issue with that. I was happy to see everybody, but I didn't want to be the last resort. I wanted to be where people could choose. I'm going to choose this, I'm going to choose that. And I wanted to be collaborative, because I find that the resistance that both sides have, by the way, both sides have this, but I strive not to have that in all my work. And it's the resistance that causes the issue, because in Chinese medicine, resistance is very bad for the body. And resistance causes rigidity, and rigidity causes dis-ease. And our society has become very rigid, and people are very attached to the outcome. So they're either right or they're not right. And really, essentially, if you become less attached to the outcome and you're more present in your life, so you're more mindful, then everything kind of washes off you a bit more. And you don't feel like you need to be right all the time.
Yeah, beautifully said. You know, and it's just, you see that again, I think being in Asia, seeing just a different temperament, you know, around that less attachment to being right about everything, and just, as you say, kind of going with the flow, acceptance, or do you think it's just generally a cultural thing? So I saw that more, but let's get back to, I just wanted to make that observation. So let's get back to the seasons and
Thank you.
summer.
Okay. So let's be specific about summer before we do some cooking. What is summer? What is summer all about in Chinese medicine? Well, as I said earlier, it's about the energy of the heart. So it's an upwards, outward energy. It's the time of year when you can be your most active. So if you want to run a marathon, or you want to do a triathlon, or you want to fast, if that's your wish, that's a whole nother topic. Probably the summer energy is better because your energy is stronger. If you want to take some, surgery or do something important for the body, you have more energy in the summer. IVF cycles are more successful in the summer. Everything is more, it's when our chi, our energy is utmost. And that's predominantly if we've rested in the winter, remember that. So we have to build a foundation for that. It doesn't just happen. We have to rest in the winter and be appropriate throughout the year. So the summer is a time to be up and out and doing, basically. We can sleep a little bit less because it's lighter, and we can usually do with about half an hour's less sleep a night, interestingly. So it's the time to be active, and it means that we can eat lighter food. So in the winter, we eat heavier food because we're trying to slow down and rest, and we need to be nourished from the cold. But in the summer, we can eat lighter food. So the first thing to observe is that we can eat light, which means that we can eat things like salad. In the winter, that's very not indicated in Chinese medicine. So some salad can come into your diet. Cooking methods can be lighter. So instead of roasting and baking, you can cook more lightly. So you can steam foods, or you can eat raw food, not to excess though, because raw food is very difficult to digest for the body. And a lot of people have these ideas around the fact that, a smoothie for breakfast, a salad for lunch. Be careful not to have too much cold, raw food, because that cold food doesn't give you energy. So you can only really consume cold food in the summer when there's enough energy from the sun and from the environment. So we're going to be looking at making lighter foods. And you can still eat warm foods and soups and things like that, but you can maybe balance them less and have, instead of having soup every day, you can have soup every other day. But I eat soup all year round because...
Do you?
Yes, absolutely. I'm
Why?
going to be making a soup for you in a minute.
So why do you eat soup?
Because the Chinese model states that the stomach and the spleen are the most important energy of the body. Everything starts in the gut, a strong earth, and that relates to the September energy, which is the earth energy. So good health starts in the gut. Remember all those expressions, gut, gut, gut. And when people come into my clinic, I always treat their stomach energy because it's the most important thing for their whole body. Remember now in Western medicine, they start saying the difference between the connection between the vagus nerve and the gut. And so the stomach is the most important energy. So what gives the stomach energy? And the answer is warm food.
Interesting.
Warm food trumps everything. It gives people energy. So if you eat food that's easily absorbed, so I'm thinking about root vegetables, soft roots, those are very, very nourishing. That's what they give people in hospital if you go to a good hospital, not necessarily in the UK. But soup is a very, very healing, stomach-building food. And if your stomach is strong, the rest of your organs are also strong. Remember in Chinese medicine, if one's strong, then they all roll round and support each other. So soup it should be your top food.
That's interesting because you go to these hot climates and they have soup a lot, don't they? And
of course.
Even on the continent, places like Portugal, they always have a soup before their meal.
Of course. Of
It's
course.
really interesting.
Yeah.
Whereas we see it's more of just a winter food, and we
Not
don't
at all.
really
Not
have it
at
in the
all.
summer. Can I just ask? So we can have the lighter food, the salads, all of that.
Yes.
But we should still have them alongside
Absolutely.
the root vegetables, the more kind of winter.
Yes.
Foods.
Yes. So, for example, what am I having for lunch today? Well, I'm having for lunch a soup that I'm going to show you, and I will also have a small salad with it. So I'll eat the salad first because it's a whole nother topic. But if you eat your greens first, it's much better for your stomach acid and for your glucose. So if you eat your salad first, I'll then eat my soup, and I might have some other protein with it. So every week I make hummus out of chickpeas and garlic and olive oil, and I keep it in the fridge, and I have it for lunch with some oat crackers and my soup and my salad.
Amazing.
So that's my summer repertoire. Whereas in the winter, I would be eating a chunkier bean and root vegetable soup, but which is much more warming and more dense, more carbohydrate based. You'll see today the soup we make is not carbohydrate based at all. Remember, protein makes you.
You have soup daily, pretty much.
Yes, I do.
Interesting.
I make a big batch on Sunday, and I have enough for 5 days. So I take it to work, and so I make a big soup, a big chickpea, something like that, and then something I would have for dinner, like a casserole or something like that. And then I've got my 3 meals, and most of my food for the week is already done.
So can I ask you a question about the evening meal? The evening meal, traditionally, I guess, shouldn't be raw. It should be cooked because it's easier to digest. How about in the summer? Does that change?
No raw after 4, ever.
Interesting.
Ever. You can't digest it. Just can't digest it. It'll sit there.
So salads are better for lunch rather than dinner?
Absolutely. So remember the rule about in Chinese medicine, the clock, and this is what I talk about when I'm teaching, the clock shows that every 2-hour period of the day is where each different organ is at its strongest. And the stomach energy is the strongest between 7 and 9 in the morning. So you need to be eating your biggest meal in the morning. So what I'm going to cook for you is quite a big breakfast. And sometimes I have my adhere bean casserole for breakfast because that's my biggest meal. It's got protein and it's really, really fortifying breakfast. So equally, your weakest time to digest food is 12 hours later, between 7 and 9 in the evening.
When most of us eat.
Exactly right.
Most of us have our biggest meal at the end of the day. It's so interesting. Because our work patterns aren't in tune with nature, right? So we should, I guess, in the old days, people be working the land, so they'd have to be up earlier and work out in the land, and then stop working when the sun sets. And whereas we're
and I mean, people say, look, that's impossible. I can't adapt to that. And I say, don't try to, but do be mindful of it. Do be mindful. Pay heed to that. Eat more in the morning. Really, really make sure that you're not eating a lot late in the evening. So you don't have to be, obsessive about it, because that's also not good. But just remember that the blueprint is better to eat more in the morning, eat less in the evening, and eat warm. If that's one thing I want my patients to learn from me, is eat warm.
In the evening. So what ingredients are we talking about?
So we're going to move on to having a look at the ingredients. So essentially the colour for the summer season is red. So red foods support the heart. Okay. So the heart is about the energy of the summer. And the heart in Chinese medicine is all about our connection. So how we nourish the heart is by connecting with other people. So eating food around the table is one of the best things to do in the summer. So invite people round, get them around the table, and really feel that connection between people. So it's not so much about what you're eating, it's about how you're connecting. So you're thinking red, and the taste for the season is bitter. So a lot of the foods that I make in the summer incorporate a little bit of bitter. And this flavour is long lost, I think, in our society, because we tend to eat quite a lot of bland white foods, and bitter, the taste of bitter. So that's things like chicory, endive, the bitter salads. I don't know if any of you eat those types of things like watercress and things like that. That's a really lovely bitter flavour. That's fantastic for the heart energy. So your little salad that you're going to have at lunchtime, and I make this little salad of watercress, broccoli shoots, sauerkraut, pomegranate seeds, and just with oil and some apple cider vinegar. And that's a really bitter, lovely boost for the heart. Okay.
How does that differ from spring? Because spring we had kind of similar ingredients, right?
Yeah, the spring is about sour. So sour foods are also fermented foods. So sauerkraut does come into that bracket, but more things like lemons.
Okay.
Yeah, sour, and things like yogurt, and sort of that sour taste is good for the liver.
Okay.
And the colour for the spring was green, if you remember. So everything we cooked was green. And now the summer, we're talking about red foods and incorporating some bitter foods in. Okay. So we're talking red, we're talking bitter, we're talking soup, we're talking a good breakfast. So what I'm going to look at with you today is what I eat for breakfast in the summer. I've already had it this morning and I've washed up the bowl, and I'm going to make it again, and I'm going to put it in the fridge for tomorrow. So essentially I make my food the day before, because what I find is I get really stressed if I've got to go to work and do my clinic and I'm there trying to make my, breakfast. So I make it the night before, and it takes me 4 minutes to make.
Wow.
And you'll see how quick it is to make. And obviously once you've got the ingredients, and then I come down in the morning and I take it out of the fridge and I put it in the oven. This is my breakfast, by the way. And it takes 40 minutes in the oven. So I've got a dog and I walk him around the lake, and when I come back, my breakfast is ready. So that's what I'm going to make for you first of all. And then secondly, I'm going to show you a soup that I'm going to make for the week. So what I would be making at the moment is obviously a red soup. And it's a soup that contains protein. Remember, in the summer, we're not looking so much at too many carbohydrates. We're looking at lighter food. Carbohydrates are heavier food. So, if you want to make yourself fall asleep, have a nice big bowl of pasta or risotto or something like that, and you'll fall asleep. Big lots of carbohydrates. So you could actually have carbs more in the evening. So I'm going to be making a light soup. And then I'm just going to talk about 2 other things that I usually make for dinner in the summer. So can I check in and see if there's any questions from anybody? Because I've been doing a lot of talking. Stella, can we just ask? Yeah.
Please do. Anyone have any questions? Please either put them in chat or you can ask out loud. Helen, yeah.
Yes, off you go.
Unmute and let us know.
Hi, thank you very much for the introduction. And I'm just wondering, you mentioned that you would have the green salad first and then soup afterwards. And I'm just wondering, what's the logic behind, please?
Yes, okay, that's fine. So this isn't so much of an Eastern concept, if I'm really honest, but I've done a lot of studying into why people get really tired after they've eaten, and about people's energy patterns generally. And the Chinese, the answer for them is to eat warm food to stabilize that. But the concept is that it's really important not to spike your blood sugar. And so essentially when we eat things like, things that are very heavy in carbs or sugar, and a lot of people eat very sugary foods for breakfast, like cereal or toast, or it's just sugar. It's just not anything nutritious. Our insulin goes up, and it's about watching how the body spikes. And this is if you're not even diabetic or pre-diabetic. This is just if you're a healthy individual who's not affected by this. And so what we're looking at is flattening that kind of insulin spikes all day long, where you have a cup of coffee and a biscuit and you shoot up and then come down and feel really tired. So the concept of eating the greens is that when you eat fiber or vegetables or both, or anything with vinegar in, it quietens down the response for insulin. So basically, if you eat that first, then you don't spike. And then if you have your protein next, you also stay very level. And if you're going to have any carbohydrate or sugar, if you have it at the end, then the dial's already been set, if you know what I mean. So there's a lot of people you can read about this, and this isn't necessarily so much of an Eastern concept, but it's something I adopt with people if they're really motivated about looking at their health. And there's a lot of podcasters who've been talking about this in the last year or two. And there's one called the Glucose Goddess. You can look her up if you want to. And basically, it's to neutralize, to keep the insulin spikes down. So if you've got a plate of food, so what I sometimes have for breakfast is a little sprig of watercress with a little bit of apple cider vinegar on, and then 2 eggs maybe. And then if I want to have a piece of sourdough toast, I have it at the end. And then I feel completely full and completely level energetically, and I don't have any moods or tiredness. And then I eat at lunchtime again.
That's really interesting. Thank you.
Does that help you, Helen?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
That's really interesting, that is. Because now there's more research, isn't there, about how insulin spikes are actually a bigger reason for heart disease than high cholesterol. A lot of research is coming out
Stella.
about that. So the insulin spikes throughout the day can have more of a
Stella. They're now even saying they think it is the contributing factor to all lifestyle diseases.
All lifestyle diseases, insulin spikes.
Yes.
So this is really, really good advice what you just gave us about neutralizing that. That's very interesting. Thank you.
And it feels challenging, but it's completely possible when you get used to it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of, if you go to restaurants, a lot of restaurants will serve the salad first. I think they do that.
They do in the Mediterranean because they know that's why.
The Mediterranean lifestyle is very much that. Okay, some other questions. Maureen, this is a good one because I brought this up last time and I'm still struggling with this one. I'm guilty on this. So I do intermittent fasting, and I've had debates with Kate about this, and Kate has told me, no, have your breakfast at 7 a.m. I'm still struggling to do that because I've trained myself to do intermittent fasting. So Maureen actually says, opposing popular fasting trend and delaying breakfast for those with recent weight gain who want to lose a bit of weight. Perhaps you want to tell us the story about the lady who was cooking for her husband and having the big meal at night.
Yeah, actually, I think I said that in the last talk, didn't I, Stella? Yeah, so this really stayed with me, which is why I talk about it when I'm teaching, because I was 25 years or 28 years ago when I was doing my degree, there was a lady that came into our student clinic who was very overweight, and she used to just eat once a day because she didn't want to gain any more weight, and she prepared this beautiful curry with ghee, and her husband worked till 6:30, and so they sat down and ate at 8 o'clock together every night, and they had this beautiful meal. It was all home cooked, which is really, really helpful. And essentially, she had nothing. In the morning, she had lemon water and went out and tried to walk in the park and do things to distract her, and then she ate again in the evening. And I thought my supervisor would say, no, you have to exercise and you have to do this and that. And I thought he'd get really prescriptive. But he said, I don't want you to change anything about what you're doing. I do want you to sit with your husband and connect with him, because in Chinese medicine, connection over food is really important, as I've just said. So when he comes in, if you just want to have your drink or your lemon water or whatever, when he comes in, but I just want you to eat your dinner for breakfast. And she said, that's all you want me to do? Well, I can have the same thing. And he said, yeah. And she was coming into the clinic for about 6 months, and she lost, I think, 4.5 or 5 stone.
Just by shifting it to the morning. You see, it's so Maureen is right though. This is very trendy, intermittent fasting. I've got to say, sorry, Kate, I'm an advocate of intermittent fasting because it works for me. But I see this other side, and I'm going to try.
They don't say not to fast. They think you should fast from 7 till 7. That's their fast. 12 hours is a very long fast.
At the other time, yes, at the other time, it's just because of our lifestyle, isn't it? So the fasting period is earlier. So you could actually have your dinner earlier
Of course.
Earlier at 5 and then fast. So you're still doing your intermittent fasting, but you're eating in the morning.
Much better for you. Better for you.
Yeah. It's lifestyle.
Do it and tell me how you feel. Because all these people say, no, I can't change. I can't not do that. This is what I'm going to do. And the problem is people do lose weight when they narrow their window, because the body goes into starvation mode. That's normal. But the idea is we've got chemicals and enzymes in our body that from thousands of years ago that do things at specific times. We can't fight against that. It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
It's really good advice. It's just changing what time you eat with the family and those kind of things. This is the thing. Yes, thank you, Maureen. Yes, try it, Maureen, and let us know, please. I keep saying I'm going to try it. I haven't managed it yet. Lisa, we forgive you. It's okay for feeling tired.
Yeah.
Should we be eating a variety? They say 30 different foods and spices a week. So if you eat the same lunch every day, you're not following this and therefore not getting a variety of different nutrients. What are your thoughts of this? Interesting.
Yes, that's really good. Really, really good. And I also subscribe to having a very diverse gut biome and flora and fauna. And I do eat the same. The cereal I make, show you in a minute, is what I have 3 days a week, and the other days I have something different. So I have eggs sometimes, or I have sardines, or I make an omelette with mushrooms and tofu for breakfast. So I have 4 or 5 different breakfasts. So I am eating a variety of different things. And then I there's always something that I haven't got planned, because I can't plan everything. That would be far too boring. And so a couple of nights a week, I've got no idea what I'm going to have for dinner. And I, pluck something out the cupboard, or get something on the way home, or eat out with my partner or something like that, And so there is a variety going on. But I find that the way of me surviving and not going for processed foods is to batch cook and make sure I know what I'm eating. And I think it's better to do that and eat the same food three nights a week, and then something different the next week. Yeah. Because otherwise I come home and I'm tired and I'm hungry, and our reliance on processed foods is what is absolutely doing us dirty these days. People don't realize what I mean by processed food. That's anything you haven't made yourself. That's your bread, that's everything. And that's the real thing. If I say to people, what one thing to do is make everything yourself. And they say, oh, but I eat really well. I go to Marks and Spencer's and get their finest dinner. And I, all those sorts of things. Yes, fine. But if you have to make everything yourself, that's when you're going to really start eating healthy and wide. Yeah. Okay. How are we doing?
We're good. I think we should start cooking.
Yes. Okay. So now I've got to just turn around I'm in my little kitchen, by the way, everybody. I've got my dog at my feet. So if he gets in the way or barks, I apologize in advance. I'm going to turn the screen round to face my kitchen and do my best to show you a couple of things. Okay. So bear right with me whilst I get up and move off my bench.
Oh, very good. There you go.
Okay, I'm on the other side of the kitchen now, and I don't know how this is going to go, so I'm going to try and show you what I want to make. So essentially, remember, we're talking red, we're talking bitter, we're talking lighter foods, we're talking about foods that nourish the heart. So the top foods for nourishing the heart are things like coconut is really good for the heart, by the way. And so is rose. So I always bring those two things into my diet somewhere along the line. Coconut milk, coconut water. It's a very healthy fat, by the way. So the best fats you should be eating is olive oil, coconut oil, avocado oil. Those are your 3 top fats. Everything else, well, you can take it or leave it. A little bit of butter is fine as well, but any of the other fats are not healthy fats. So coconut is really top, and rose. So somewhere along the line, because obviously the roses are out now. I don't know if you've all noticed, but this week, they're out. It's amazing. And so rose always comes into my cooking as well. So with those concepts in mind, my breakfast contains red foods. And so essentially I'm going to be using the berries that I've got in the market this morning. So I got English raspberries. Okay, so for my breakfast I make it in a dish, because remember I put it in the oven. So what I do is I start off, and I'm just going to make this here when I'm talking. I start off by adding the fruit at the bottom of the bowl. And so I just probably put a pretty good portion of raspberries in there. So that's quite, pretty much my fruit intake for the day, if you like, along the base of the bowl, like that. And then I'll put a sprinkle of blueberries. And my greengrocer, who I love, assured me that these are from the UK. So I've got both fruits there sitting in the bottom. The next thing I do is I add my oats, and I use organic gluten-free oats. So I buy big batches of these. I don't just buy them in little pouches in the supermarket because I use so much of them. Oats are really good for the digestion. They flush through the gut. They're really good for sluggish bowels and that type of thing as well. So not every day, remember, I don't have this, but every other day, this is I'd be having oats for breakfast. So we then put the oats on top. I can't tell you measurements because I don't work like that, I'm afraid, everybody. The oats are then on top. The next thing I take is chia seeds. Chia seeds, most people know what these are. They're full of fibre, they're full of micronutrients. Not particularly a Chinese choice, but they're very, very good for the gut. And so that's a really good thing to have in the morning. So I put 1 to 2 tablespoons, depending on how much fibre you can manage in your diet. Okay. The third thing I use is a ground seed, and I use flaxseed. Now, I talk a lot about using seeds for health. They're very good at balancing hormones. So seeds that are good for working on hormones for people that are menstruating, it's good to use flaxseed in the first part of your cycle, and to use pumpkin seeds in the second part of your cycle. So that you can use flax seeds on your cereal in the first 2 weeks, which they call the follicular phase, and then you can switch over and use pumpkin seeds in what they call the luteal phase. If you're menopausal or postmenopausal, you can still do this as well because they're very, very healthy. And even though you're not menstruating anymore, it's a really good way of balancing that kind of that shadow of hormones that we used to have in life. So how much of these do I use? 1 tablespoon, about that much. Sprinkle those on top. And again, I'm varying that according to different times of the month, or whatever I've got in my cupboard as well, don't forget. So I'm going to honour the season, and I'm going to use some desiccated coconut. I really like desiccated coconut. So if you like coconut, then you can add that in now, 1 to 2 tablespoons. It still does only take 4 minutes, by the way, Liz. And then you can use any milk you like, plant-based milk, normal milk, whatever you like. I use plant-based milk myself. I use coconut for the summer one. So coconut milk goes into the mix. Just pour that on top until you look like you've covered it pretty well. Don't forget that the chia seeds absorb a lot of liquid. So when you come down in the morning, everything looks firm. If you want to eat it cold, you can, but remember the concept of warm food. Pop it in the oven. And I also use rose petals because, of course, I've said to you that rose is really good. So, you can get these rose petals. I think some of you will have seen them. I just sprinkle those on the top. But before I do that, if I want to make my breakfast really full of protein, I add 2 extra things. Now, don't be shocked, but I add an egg. So I break an egg into the mix. I'm going to do that now. And you don't have to do this. You can try it with or without. And then I'm just going to get my spoon and I'm just going to mix it in. And essentially what it makes is this lovely sort of baked, I suppose my mother would probably have called it an egg custard in a way, but it's not. It's just like a beautiful bake that's really, it's not too dense, but it's really lovely and filling and nourishing. So I'm just mixing the egg in now. And then I also add some chopped nuts on top. So you can use, I've got almonds and Brazils. You can use any mixture of any nuts. So I chop them all up first and I sprinkle them over the top. And then finally, I've got my rose petals. So I'm just going to put those on top. with my nuts. So we're just coming up for 4 minutes now. Honestly, if you have it all out, then, and I've even managed to get young people to do this, because it's quite you think it's a very unusual breakfast, but actually young people really like it as well. And all my children eat this for breakfast. I can't believe I've managed to convert them. And essentially what I do is, according to the season, I change the base. So I always use fruit. So in the autumn, I would use grated apple, because that's the fruit of the season. In the winter, it's harder to get fresher fruit. So that's when sometimes I use things like prunes or cherries, or I sometimes use tinned or dried fruit. But in the spring, I tend to move forward and use lighter, but anything that's available, I use for the base. And so now I'm just going to show you what I've made. I hope I can do this. Is it working?
Yep.
Okay, so there we go. That's my breakfast bake. All right, so I'm going to put that in the fridge now, and then tomorrow morning you can all think of me at 7 o'clock. So I should be putting that in my in my oven and walking around the lake.
How long does it go in the oven for?
It's about 35-40 minutes. It takes a little while, actually.
That's really interesting. I've never seen anything like that before with the egg.
No, and
you just put it in the fridge and let, like overnight oats, where people do that and then they let that sit. But you're cooking it. I'm going to definitely try that.
Are you?
Yeah.
Well, that recipe's in my little book as well, actually, if you want the exact measurements.
Okay. No, I'll wing it like you. I like that.
Yeah. Do you know, I think winging it.
The rose petals are fantastic. In Cypriot cooking, we use rose a lot. We use a lot of rose essence and rose, because I guess it's, that
I forgot the last
energy.
ingredient. The last ingredient is actually a teaspoon of rose, the flavour of rose. I don't know if any of you know this, but this is absolutely glorious. I put that in my pudding as well.
Everybody a tip about that as well, that rose water. Sometimes I just have it with hot water. I put a little drop in hot water, and it is the most soothing, beautiful drink to have. It just uplifts you. It's a great summer taste, but I love the rose petals on top. I love that.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so we've got a few minutes left. I won't be able to cook the next thing, but I'm going to show you what's in it. Okay. So the soup I'm going to make for my week this week, obviously you've guessed it, it's going to be red. So what are we going to use? We're going to use the top foods for the season: peppers, tomatoes. Those are the top foods. Sorry, is there a question in the chat bar there that's just flashed up on my?
You have just catching you out. Demonstrates that it's impossible to eat solely local. Chia seeds, coconut. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, and it's really true. I think I don't know if I said it, but I really mean it. It's not, you can't be completely, you would drive yourself mad if you did that.
Yeah.
Absolutely bonkers. Coconuts obviously come from a very long way away, but they're very good for fat and are very good for the heart. I'm afraid I have to confess, I eat avocados. My kids say, Mom, that's terrible. That's so unenvironmental. They come from a long way away. And I said, I know there's 2 or 3 things that are in my diet that I think, I would like to keep. And
they're so good for you. They're so good for you, avocados. I think.
Yes, totally agree. So thanks for pointing that out. It's completely true. I cannot be 100%. I should say that more. It's just having the intention. And I talk to people about 80-20 in life. 80% do the right thing, 20% go out and eat crisps and drink wine. And that's totally what I subscribe to. You cannot eat 100% seasonal. And like all the things I'm showing you, I can't guarantee they're from England. Like, for example, I cook a lot with British asparagus, and I buy them where it says British asparagus. So for supper last night, I had salmon, and I had, because I love salmon, and when we had British potatoes and British asparagus. And I put a little bit of olive oil on the asparagus, and I ate the asparagus first, because remember what I said about eating the green things first? And then I had a mouthful or 2 of salmon, and then I ate the salmon and potatoes together. And that's what I'm talking about trying to keep the insulin spikes.
That's really good advice. Go back to your soup. Come on.
Yeah, so the soup, we're going to use red foods. So I'm going to just use the base of an onion. I'm just going to sweat an onion, very easy. I'm then going to dice the red pepper, sweat that in the olive oil as well. I'm then going to use one red chili, absolutely delicious. I love red chili. And then I'm going to use fresh tomatoes. And when I went to the market this morning, these are the tomatoes that he gave me. They weren't all red, but these are the ones that came from local, so I'm going to use them all. And what I do to get the skins off is I plunge them in boiling water, and then the skins come off really easily. Sometimes I add a tin of plum tomatoes if they're really good quality plum tomatoes, but mostly I just use fresh tomatoes. And then I use, I put some red lentils in because that's a really good protein. So I sprinkle in red lentils. And the stock that I use is a vegan organic bouillon stock. And then I just put filtered water in on top, and I cook it for 45 minutes. And I half blend it because I like my soup half smooth, half not. But you can do as you wish. And then I'll eat that 3 or 4 times this week and share that with people as well. So I cook my cereals for breakfast. Not every day, remember. So some days I have something different. I cook my soup on a Sunday, so I've got it for the week. And I cook a big casserole. Sometimes I do a dooky bean casserole or whatever you eat. And if you eat meat, then make yourself is beetroot for the heart of the liver. The beetroot's for the liver. Oh my gosh, it's a superfood for the liver. It doesn't mean to say that you only eat it in the little spring season. If it's growing now, eat it now. Beetroot is a superfood. Absolute superfood. So things like beetroot, garlic, onions, lemons, they are the absolute, nature's superfoods. And ginger. Those are my top 5. There you go.
Thank you so much. So I just want to say, Kate, I mean, you've given up your Saturday morning, got all your ingredients. Thank you. Big thank you for that. Kate is running some retreats. She's doing one in Hitchin actually next week.
Next weekend, Saturday and Sunday.
Next weekend, but if you want to go for the day, you can go for the day as well. It's all on our website. We sent a newsletter about it last week. But if you want to spend the weekend, you can as well. And then she's doing a great retreat in Greece in September, which looks amazing. But anyway, in the meantime, and then also what we'll do when we send this out, the recording, I'll send out the link where if you've got a cookery book, a seasonal cookery book, and you can order that from Kate as well. I'll send that link out too. But thank you so much for coming along and sharing all this. Yeah, Maureen's right. It's inspiring information. That's a great word, because it's informative. There's so much wisdom in it, like this ancient wisdom, but it's also really inspiring. The way you deliver the information is inspiring.
Thank you, Stella.
No, thank you. Thank you for being with us. Thank you everyone for coming along. I'm going to go. I want to go and make that. I'm like, really, I need to go and buy some raspberries. So have a great weekend, everyone. A great week ahead.